In our first story, we'll be learning about how oyster beds are created and how they are being utilized in projects throughout the region. We've partnered with the Shinnecock Indian Nation and the Great Peconic Race Organization, among other groups, to set out these structures. Let's learn more about this process.
Spat on Shell is what the project is called. Greg Rivara, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County's Marine Program Aquaculture Specialist, is getting the Spat on Shell ready to be delivered.
Spat's the name for juvenile shellfish, especially oysters. And you can see through this plastic mesh try to get you a better one to look at. You can see through this plastic mesh all these set oysters. These are over a month old. They've been in this tank for at least a month. And we use these tanks to do what's called remote setting. So we take the larvae from the hatchery and we put them in these tanks full of warm seawater. We have a heater in that tank and we put food in and aerate. The larvae go in and within a couple of days they're actually set. They grab onto a shell and that's where they stay the rest of their lives. They can't move around like scallops or hard clams or surf clams do. These bags get slid open in the field. We take the plastic, we recycle the plastic, and they get put onto a reef or onto a hard bottom to create a shellfish bed or an oyster reef. These are ready to be planted. They've actually been in here too long, and they'll grow much better in the field than they will in here because there's a limited amount that our pool pump can pump. So this is more for restoration and enhancement. And by the way, these shells, even without oysters on them, these shells create a lot of habitat for other species, fish, crabs, worms. It's pretty incredible. And we're working with the Shinnecock Nation, we're working with the Moriches Bay Project, and we're working with the Friends of Belport Bay. So they're helping to fund this operation, and then we monitor them over years. And what we planted 3 years ago in Moriches Bay and 2 years ago in Belport, they're doing amazing. So the sooner these get out of here, the better. They'll actually grow better. The Shinnecock Project is pretty nice because it's a big reef that's three-dimensional. It's probably that high off the bottom. Some of it's subtidal, some of it's intertidal. And it basically parallels the shoreline that we're working on, and it's centered off the Nation Cemetery, which had a lot of problems with erosion. And with our beach nourishment project and all the plantings that my colleagues have done, it's a pretty amazing beach right now. So this oyster reef is going to be a living reef. It's going to create habitat. It's going to protect the shoreline as like a wave break because it faces the west. You can see the Ponquag Bridge from where these are going. And in the summertime and in certain times of the winter, you get some serious wave action there. So it'll be the first line of defense. They also will spawn, probably next year, they'll be big enough to spawn. And their spawn, the larvae float around for 2 weeks or so. And the larvae can wind up anywhere in Shinnecock Bay. And they could set up in areas where they haven't been oysters before, and people could harvest them, or they're doing their job filtering the water. So it's not just the reef, it goes beyond the physical locality of the reef we're building. A lot of restaurants on the North and South Forks, in fact all across the world, a lot of shell go right into the dumpster. It's kind of sad, it's a waste. So I'm working with Little Creek Oyster in Greenport. Every Monday I go and I pick up literally a pickup truck load of shell. And it's been very fruitful. You'll have to take a picture or video of the pile out there over the last 6 months. It's quite a pile. And it'll stay there again until next spring. We hope to do more of that. It just becomes a material handling thing. A lot of shells generated. So I actually went Saturday morning, Memorial Day weekend, and came back Monday. That's how many shell there was. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the growth rate, the survival rate. Obviously, not 100% of these are not going to grow into old age, there's no way. I'll also be looking at, in the future, reproduction and looking for new set. So as these grow, if new babies attach to that, we know that it came from Shinnecock Bay. And we'll be able to tell if little oysters form on there that they were larvae from Shinnecock Bay. Now we can't prove necessarily they're from these oysters, but it's a pretty good chance that they would be from our oysters that were spawned here in Southold.
Anything else?
Eat more Long Island grown oysters. That's all I can tell you. Do something good for the environment.
Thanks, Greg, and special thanks to Little Creek Oysters for partnering with us to conduct the shell recycling efforts required to make our oyster beds.